Hey, welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the weekly live webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with the mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, and Blue Cap Productions. Tune in every Wednesday and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live. Good morning to all of you all around the world. Today is November 18th, 2020, and that officially makes this episode our 25th episode of Mineral Talks Live. I can't send enough thanks to Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez and Dr. Eloise Gayu for teaming together with me to make these programs possible. It couldn't have been done without all three of us committing our time and energy in making this program come to life, and I couldn't be more proud of our partnership and what we've created together. I also want to thank all of our guests who have agreed to come on the show and share their time, stories, and minerals with the world. And finally, this show could not be possible without all of you watching and participating in our shows. We're having an absolutely fantastic time making these shows, and speaking for all of us, we're looking forward to many shows in the future. So welcome to the 25th episode of Mineral Talks Live, the weekly mineral talk show broadcasting to you live every Wednesday. I'm Brian Swoboda, the president of Blue Cap Productions, and for today, we're going straight up, about 1 mile. That's right, we're hitting the mile-highest city of Denver, Colorado. But first, a little bit about our show. Mineral Talks Live is a weekly webinar put on by myself representing Blue Cap Productions, Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez representing the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, and Dr. Eloise Gayu representing the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, also known as the SMMP. For these shows, I'll be broadcasting to you live from Honolulu, Hawaii, while Raquel is live all the way from Boston, Massachusetts, and Eloise is having soft cheese somewhere in France. Now, we share this information with you so that you understand that you're part of a global show, and it's your participation that helps to make the show what it is. How can you participate? You gently ask your cat as it's snoozing on the couch next to you. Well, that's a great question. So let me tell you. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of buttons. There's one button labeled chat and another labeled Q&A. The chat feature allows you to type messages to everyone watching and participating in the show. You'll see that many people like to fire off a hello in the chat when they first sign on. We love this as it shows us where you're from in the world. So don't be shy. Give a shout out to your city. Now, during the interview, our guests and I will be focused on our conversation and not really looking at the chat window. However, both Raquel and Eloise will be very active in those chats, so look for their comments along with everyone else's. At times, either Raquel or Eloise may interject during the interview with questions that you're asking so we can get an immediate answer from our guests while they're still on the topic. Now, the second way to interact is with the Q&A function. This allows you to submit general questions that we'll try to answer at the end of the interview. So for those of you who need everything repeated to you twice, and you know who you are, immediate questions, use the chat. General questions, use the Q&A. Finally, at about 40 minutes into the program, you may see a window pop up on your screen asking a bunch of questions for our weekly poll. Excuse me. These are questions we carefully curate for each guest, so come on, play along, and let's see how well you know our guest. And speaking of guests, chances are you have at least one of her publications on your bookshelf. And if you don't, well, shame on you. Ladies and gentlemen, Gloria Staebler. Gloria, how you doing today?
Good, how are you? Hi, everybody.
I'm doing fantastic. How's the weather out there in Denver?
Oh, pretty good. Cold, but clear. It's nice.
Terrific. Now, Gloria, as you know, on this show, I like to dial back the clock a little bit and ask our guests, how did you first get involved in minerals? So how did you first get involved in minerals?
I actually, I started my own business when I was in college as a small business consultant. And I had really had very little interaction with minerals. And I met someone I was working on an NIH grant actually for smoking cessation. And one of the people on staff there was a mineral collector. And he had found a whole lot of specimens, and he asked me to help him set up a business and showed me what he had found and that sort of thing. And I was totally intrigued by the rocks. It was completely a chance thing. And I went with him to the Gilsum Swap in New Hampshire, and I, just was part of the show and observed it. And I had people coming over looking with loops at the, and they were talking about science, and they were very interested in mineralogy. And then I saw people who were putting their hands over them, and one woman proclaimed, "I'm a witch," and and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm part science and part witch. I love this."
Watch out. They used to burn the witches out in that part of the country.
Yes, they did. And so I really like business. And so, I helped with that and got very involved, and it was just a big hit for me right away. And so I became a dealer after a while, and and traveled, and I still had my consulting business, helping people, with their computers and that sort of thing. And I'm very nervous.
That's okay. You're doing great. I mean, I love this. You almost bypassed the whole collector thing and you became a mineral dealer.
Yeah, no, I
think
was
that's
never,
fantastic.
I'm not a collector. And to this day, I do have a small collection now of goethite and halite, because I grew up in upstate New York, and I think it's very cool that salt and rust crystallize. And so I have a small collection of goethite and halite, but I'm a minimalist, and I feel like if I have to dust it or insure it, I really don't want it.
I love it. I love it. So now you bypassed the whole collector phase and you became a mineral dealer. Your next big step, yeah, your next big step was in the year 2000 at a mineral show in Rochester. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I had been a dealer for 10 years, and I wanted to go back to school. I was sort of thinking, I didn't know very much about what I was doing, and that was not that comfortable for me. So I was a dealer, and I met Christian Weiza, and he asked me to store some things in his storage, some of his books. He's the publisher of Lapis. And I put them into the storage, or I thought I did. He had them in flats. And I went from there to, at the invitation of Bill Pinch, to a show at Rochester, New York, just a little club show in a school gymnasium. And I got there, and I had confused some of the flats of books with some of the flats of rocks. I had left the rocks in the storage in Tucson and had all these books in German. And this big table, like 6 tables or something, or 8 tables. So I put the rocks I had out, and I just put these books out, because what was I going to do? And they sold. I mean, to just in a little club show, these German books sold.
I love it. That is hilarious.
I was, I'm thinking, if they'll sell in German, what will they do in English?
Right.
And so I ended up, it's a long story, but to make it short, it's a long story, and it, is involved. But we ended up, Günther Neumeier and I ended up getting the rights to publish the Extra Lapis series in English. And we thought,
if you were to publish it in German, it'd be a bit from the Department of Redundancy department.
I was naive, and actually, being naive is sort of, I don't know. I've bumped into a lot of things along the way, but I've been naive about a lot of things through the years. So I was naive, and I thought, well, I'll keep the consulting business, I'll keep the mineral business, and I'll just get these translated, and we'll publish them, and it'll be cool. And of course, we started translating them. Alfredo Petrov did the first translation, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I looked to the people that I looked to for help, like Skip Simmons and the author of Madagascar, that was Alfredo Petra, no, Federico
Federico
Pizzotto.
Pizzota, yeah. And so here I'm putting
And
up the first. This was their first issue. This is the Madagascar
right.
issue of your English translation of Extra Lapis, and
Hmm.
this came out in December of 2001. And
That's right.
this was more than just a German translation, as you were saying. So please continue.
Yeah, it was, I was working directly with the author. So I began this process where we worked very, very closely with the authors and the editors, really curating the piece and bringing it together. And it was just anything but a direct translation. It's the only book that is largely a translation, but Federico wanted to bring things in different directions, and we were able to accommodate that, and so then we moved forward. The next one was Emerald, and Johnson Kankis came on as to support me on that. And wow, I mean, every single one in the beginning, every one of them has been a watershed because of the things that we've learned. But in the beginning, it was really like that, and he really shepherded us. He had us introduce or bring references into the books, and he was a very experienced author, and
And so that was with the second issue, which is what I have up on the screen right
that's
now.
right. That's the second issue. That's out of print. The first ones are all out of print. They're hard to get. Even
So now you really changed the way that the magazines are being done, because you were working very, very closely with the authors, which is a little bit different, correct?
authors and the editors. Yeah, yeah. I
Animators,
didn't know
okay.
what I was doing, so I had to rely on people who did. And so our process quickly became something very different. It's a very collaborative process. As I understand it now, that's different from the way publications across all media or genres are done very differently than this. But when we work on something, it's really a collaboration with the editors and the authors. They're experts. I'm not. So it's just, and we just really end up getting, I think, a really good product that way.
Well, now this new process that you had, you continued with the second or the third issue, which was the tourmaline, followed by, I believe, calcite and gold. And by the time you came out with your sixth issue, which was Pakistan, you changed the entire look to kind of reflect the change in the process that you were doing. Yes.
Absolutely, and yeah, and to look toward our market, Pakistan. That the German version of the Extra Lapis there was a Pakistan and Afghanistan. I didn't think that was, I wanted to do something more in depth just on the one place, and so yeah, so this really represented a larger departure from, the process had now really departed from what the concept of the Extra Lapis was in a lot of ways. And there's a couple of interesting anecdotes about that story. I think Herba Boda might be on, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but was his specimen. And I don't know if you can get a close up of Pakistan. It's actually
Here we
repaired
go.
to the top and a bottom. And he
Yeah,
was
I
showing
think
that,
I've got on my screen. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
I believe it was to Daniel Trinchillo, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, one of them said, "Hey, that looks like the top to my piece," and they brought them together and they pushed them together and they could never get them apart again. And
I've
so
heard this story. I think Danny shared it with us when he was on the program.
yeah, so I don't know who has that now, but it's a wonderful story. And then inside, we worked really closely with Shafi Mohammed on this book and a number of friends in Pakistan, and this is, if you've ever heard me, I give a talk occasionally, very occasionally, about publishing. And I had a funny story happen with this book also, was that, the Urdu and Farsi, the calligraphy for those languages is an art, and it's a very beautiful thing.
Yes.
And I wanted to have the Minerals, Mountains, and Majesty done in calligraphy by an artist there. And I went to Shafi, and I asked him if he knew a calligraphy artist, and he did not. And I said, well, there's a guy in New York. He's an Indian. I'll go and ask him. And he said, that's fine. And so I I showed it to him in the layout. Here was this beautiful piece of calligraphy. And he said, yeah, it's really good. And it's very pretty. He said, but it doesn't say Minerals, Mountains, and Majesty. It says Pakistan, Minerals, Mountains, and Bullshit. So I had to just go with the bitmap.
Well, there's your lesson. Always have a second editor ready to go.
I'm so naive about, the relationship between Indians and Pakistanis. I think I'm hiring an artist, but anyway. So
that is hilarious. Oh my God.
So Pakistan was a big book for us in a lot of different ways. We sold a lot we did a lot of mapping of Pakistan at a time when Osama bin Laden was active, and that really wasn't that interesting for the State Department and other places for us to be doing that. And so anyway, it was very interesting in a lot of different ways.
Well, now after the Pakistan issue, you followed up with the barrel issue, the issue on Elba, and the fluorite issue. But after fluorite was published, something pretty significant changed. Tell us about that.
We were printing in Germany. And 9/11 really changed a lot of things, but it took some time. I believe fluorite was done in 2006, and in terms of pre-press and that sort of thing, the Germans were spot on. They were handling everything really, really well. The people that we were working with were the same people that Lapis was working with, and they're just consummate professionals. They knew what they were doing. We were working with art house quality. And, I didn't understand. I didn't realize any of that. I just thought a printer's a printer is a printer. It doesn't matter. And the fluorite book got held up in customs, and it was problematic for us. It was held up for a long time on a vast.
As a result of 9/11.
Yeah, the way that they were changing what could come in and out of the country, and containers, and we were randomly blocked. And so we decided that really we needed to be printing in the United States.
Yeah.
And so we started. We searched around and found a printer in Massachusetts, and we printed the Opal issue with them, and everything seemed to be okay. I believe we may have done our processing still in Germany for that book, and then we just printed in the United States, but I can't remember exactly. Came out okay. That printer went out of business. After 9/11, a lot of printers, magazines, publications, I don't know if you remember this, went away. And so we found another printer, and now we were starting to work on American Mineral Treasures.
And this is the classic book. Everyone should be familiar with it. It is not a small book. It is a very thick and heavy but wonderful book. So this really kind of changed, and your work in with the printer in the USA really kind of changed a lot of what of your process. So tell us about what happened there.
Well, we had moved to now a second printer in Massachusetts, and we were getting the proofs back, and they were really not what we were used to seeing when we were working with the German pre-press and printers. They were kind of dead. The colors were off, particularly on the Sweet Home rhodochrosites, the Jackson Crossroads, and the Hardin County fluorite. And so I was really frustrated. This was a tense time. We were under a lot of pressure with that book. And I started to go into the printer's office to sit beside the woman, Nancy was her name, who was doing the pre-press. And, you know, she was processing the images. And I mean, the Germans had all handled all of that so beautifully for us that it never was anything I needed to become concerned about before. And so here I was shocked at what I was seeing, and you know, began to learn about the CMYK process, the RGB process, the differences between CMYK and RGB, and all of the things that play into a high quality publication that was, you know, being done for us before. And and anyone who knows me knows that I am not like just a calm person. So this was a lot of
That's putting it lightly.
And so you know, I'm like having a panic attack every day. So I learned that there's a lot of things. A great image and a great reproduction starts with a good photograph, of course. It starts with a great photograph. You don't get a great reproduction from a mediocre photograph.
Right.
But that great photograph then can be ruined or downgraded all along the way. And what needs to happen is that image gets processed, and then the reproduction is also a function of the paper and the coatings that get used. I do have a picture there of the coatings. I can just really quickly touch on that.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah. This is the pinch buttons that we made, and these are printed off just on our laser printer. And if you have a close-up of that, you can see how grainy this is. But as soon as we cover that with a coating, with a little very thin layer of Mylar, it removes it heals all of that little bit of all of the structure and things that you can see, and so it looks like a very clean image. Coatings are very, very important in terms of getting the image you want. You also can coat your gemstones and your minerals with Opticon and other kinds of coatings to get rid of micro cracks and, you know, heal them in this way. And it works the same in the print media. So coatings are critical to the quality that you get, and you'll never get a great quality image on newsprint because the newsprint is uncoated. And so at this point with American Mineral Treasures, in addition to doing this huge book and working with so many authors, all of a sudden we're really learning about print technology, about color chemistry, all of these things that we continue really now to spend a lot of time and energy on.
So it really kind of became a master class for you in output, where before you were relying on your German printer to handle all this. Now you were having to bring that knowledge in-house.
Absolutely. We had to bring that in-house and kind of at each printer train the people. They don't know what minerals look like, you know, and so we're working with color gamuts. This was where we really were shocked. Brian, do you have another one that shows just when you start with an RGB image?
This one?
Yeah, so if you start with an RGB image and you sit down with it, and we're in a dark room, and the screen is shielded, and so this is the image that you get. This is actually a Scoville image that will be reproduced in the upcoming Smale book that we have, the book on Smale that we have coming out, Smale's Collection. And so they put that up on there, but that is not going to print in this way. So they immediately change it to the CMYK view. And do you see how you lose that vibrancy?
Yeah, you
And
have the inner glow that you see here that
right,
disappears when you go here.
that's right. This can't be, those colors are very difficult to reproduce with the 4-color process. If you go back to the gamut, I'm sorry to be jumping around like that.
That's all right.
You go back to that gamut photo. So here you can see that the RGB gamut is this wide gamut that's on the outside. The visible spectrum is the whole circle. So our eyes can see this whole circle.
And
Your
just to
monitor,
clarify for people, RGB, which is the solid outer line, that represents what your monitor, what your computer monitor, your computer screen presents to you. So
that's
those
right.
are all the colors within the visible spectrum. The entire circle there is the visible spectrum, but that RGB line shows you only the colors that a computer monitor can reproduce.
That's right. So then when you're shooting, when you're taking a photograph, your camera sees an RGB just like your monitor does. So your camera takes a photograph in that has all the colors within that big triangle. And when you then try to decide you're going to print it on paper, and not newsprint, which you can see is that tiny little gamut in the middle, but you're going to go to CMYK, you have to bring that gamut, you have to reduce it down to a very, very small part of the spectrum.
Yeah, so you're basically going from that gamut right there in the RGB, and there are different variations of RGB which
Right.
give,
But it's basically all
preferences
the
to
same.
different parts of the spectrum. But
Mhm.
you're going from that large gamut down to that large gamut, so everything has to become compressed.
Right, that's right. And so, so we work with a lot of different photographers, and Scoville very, very commonly. And so we were able with Scoville very quickly to take his images, convert them, go through a few steps because his photos tended to be, similar. The way the conditions under which they were taken were very similar. Go through a few steps and process the image. The random people, the people who we didn't know or unfamiliar with, or just had a few images, we had to spend a lot more time overall per image on their images to try to bring them properly into the spectrum, into that CMYK gamut. And then we discovered the problem that people see with the fluoride issue also, number 9, people had begun to shoot in digital. Before that, everything was in slides and transparencies. So the processing was always professional. Nobody was trying to process their images on their own. By the time we got to American Mineral Treasures, people were submitting digital images that looked wonderful on the screen, and that they were then using software like Photoshop to manipulate on the screen and to make it match whatever they wanted it to match on the screen. Of course, every time you touch a photo in RGB, you're losing data that we need to convert that file to CMYK. And so there became a big kind of disconnect with the process and the photographers and what we were trying to do in terms of converting things to CMYK so we could get a realistic print. You need to, this photo on the pinch book is largely out of gamut, right? It's going to be, but a professional processor can figure out how to do this, like Michael Bainbridge, who knows minerals, can figure out how to do this so that he can kind of trick the eye into understanding that this is a lepidolite, knowing what the color is probably like, and then the brain sort of fills in the blanks. But when the image is processed for RGB, we lose a lot of data. Do you have that one, Jeff?
Yeah, I think you're referring to this image that's on my screen now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this is also going to be in the Smale book, and this was in the first Smale book as well, and it was in my Emerald book. So I was familiar with both the specimen and the piece. This is shot on film by Jeff Scoville. I believe he shot it for Jean Myron. And it's from, I always get the name wrong, it's from Namibia. And you can see that it's a green, it's processed and then converted to RGB that's ready to go on film.
So this was shot on film, it was scanned as an RGB, and then you and your team converted to CMYK using your process.
Using our process, and every time we print, we have a different profile because we profile
based on the paper,
the inks, the press, etc. So all of that happens. So it's impossible for someone to process an image for us. We have to do it ourselves.
Right. Okay.
Now, recently, Jeff, I'm sorry. Recently, Jeff reshot this photo, and this is in a digital camera, shot in RGB. And Michael and I were kind of discussing it last night. Obviously, something's wrong with the color here. This is not touched by us. It's not touched by anybody. And it looks like what the camera is doing here is making some kind of a conversion and bringing and doing what the digital processes do, and taking these greens, which are out of gamut. Could you go back to the gamut thing?
Yeah.
The gamut. It's taking those greens that are out of gamut, and it is pulling them all to the nearest spot in the CMYK gamut. You see, so it's pulling it out of RGB and pulling them all to one spot. So you're losing all the nuance of color, and that's what the electronic process does. That's why it needs to be manual. Will you go back to the other photo?
Yeah, Gloria.
I'm sorry. So you can see that if we didn't have this reference photo, it would be really, really difficult for us to get the correct color on this piece. How am I ever going to know? It's just not possible.
No, I get it. And so you and I talked about this, and I think you agreed that the solution for other photographers who want to submit stuff to you would be to set your camera so that it shoots RAW and JPEG, make whatever alterations you need to make on the JPEG file so that it properly represents on your monitor what you saw in real life, and then submit that altered JPEG with the untouched RAW file to you, so that you have an RGB file, the JPEG, that you can use as a reference, but then you guys can do all your work on the RAW file to convert it to CMYK and maintain that look of the RGB file.
So that's always been, that's really how we've best been able to tackle this. Michael and Jeff, for a few years, gave a photo workshop in Tucson. And Michael does all of our processing now. And he called it versioning. And actually, Ron Pilar participated in one of those and gave a lot of information. He's a color scientist. He gave a lot of information about color science. And Michael calls it versioning. So you shoot, and he can, if he would answer in the comments, and you could tell us actually the exact specifics, maybe we could post them up later. But so yeah, you shoot in RAW for sure. And then you can do a tiny bit of maybe manipulation. I don't know, really, I don't care if you do anything. And then, yes, have a reference photo, and you can make a copy of that and do all that you want to for your RGB use to post on Minette or wherever you're going to post your photos. But if you want that to be valid for print, you really need not to give us a manipulated image so that we can get what we need on print. Yeah, that's very important. And sure, a reference photo, even sometimes people will give us a printout. Yeah, and he's right. It's not unique to digital. But while I was sitting there doing American Mineral Treasures, even though we had some digital images, most of the images that we had were transparencies. So while we were doing the correction, I had the slide in a light box right next to us, and we could really try to match as best we could the slide to the color. Yeah. So anyway. So
no, and I think it's important also to point out, Gloria, that there may be a perception that you exclusively work with certain photographers like Jeff and Michael, but the reality, as we were discussing this yesterday, is you are open to all photographers submitting stuff, but you run a very tight business and you don't have the time nor the money to go through all these processes of trying to unravel what people have done with the images. And that's why it's easier for you to work with people who you've worked with in the past, where their process fits in easily with your process.
Yeah. Now, just as I don't want, I don't want that barrel to be reproduced in a homogeneous way. I don't want all of the books that I do to just be the Jeff Scoville show. I'm sorry, Jeff. But I don't like the look of that. And I think it's, we're a small publication and we're a small community. I want to include as many collectors and photographers. I mean, people are doing great work in photography. I want to include as many as I can. But when it becomes really cost prohibitive and it's just so easy to take here, get a Jeff photo, sure, I'm going to take that. It's less expensive. It's just flat out cheaper. Yeah. Even if I would rather, showcase another photographer, it's especially if they won't submit a raw file, it's just time consuming and costs a lot. We totally pay Michael by the hour, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Brian and Gloria, may I interject for a few seconds? Because
sure.
Topic, I have a few questions, and I know that Michael is already answering a bunch of them on the chat. So thanks, Michael, for doing that. But a few people are asking if you add, so if the photographer adds a few color charts next to the mineral, so you can use it as a reference when you print and you know what color has been used. Is something that you require from your photographer to use a color chart?
Michael would have to answer that. I look at the picture when I'm placing the photo in the. I look at the photo. Does it look natural? Does it look like I expect it to look? Does it fit in the layout? I love bright colored backgrounds, purples and pinks and all of that kind of thing, but that's not going to work if I've already selected a red for the same page or across the way. So I'm picking more on what's appropriate and what illustrates. Michael is left to deal with the problem children.
And Michael is answering, he doesn't mind.
So he doesn't mind because he gets paid by the hour.
Yeah, he doesn't need a color chart. And another person is asking, so maybe that's more for Michael as well, how often do people manipulate or alterate the pictures and the photos? Is it often that compared to maybe the original, the color?
100% of the time, 99.9. No one submits. And everybody resists. I mean, to the person. Jeff always gives us a digital negative because we're used to working with him. Robert Weldon is another wonderful photographer who understands profiles and versioning very well. And so he works for the GIA, so he's not as available in terms of just hiring him, but he turns in quote manipulated photos, but they're finished for us. He knows how to do that. Most everyone else does not submit a raw image, is resistant to submitting a raw image, because they don't want us to see the reflectors and the putty and whatever it is that they're using to hold the thing up or what have you. And so it's very, very difficult and people get it's very emotional. People get very, very upset. And I don't like that. I want people to be happy. But,
Of course.
yeah, very common.
Thanks, Gloria. And to answer, I know that Michael has been adding all of his comments in the chat for everybody to see, but I can read them. He's saying that a chart is necessary to correct if it's way off, but if it's way better if the photo is properly calibrated in the first place, and that the white balance is good in the first place as well. So thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Terrific. And, Gloria, speaking of Michael, all of this has kind of brought you to the point where your just released book, The Pinch Collection, whereas in the past you've worked very closely with authors and you've worked very closely with photographers. Now you're working with the author and photographer who happen to be the same person, Michael Bainbridge. How was this process?
Oh, we were working with
Come on,
Pinch for a long time.
just say nice things. Michael's watching.
I know he's watching, and I really have nice things to say. Whenever I think about any of the publications, I think about my own mistakes.
Okay.
And I made a lot of mistakes with the Pinch book in terms of process. Michael and I had worked together. He knows everything about what we need to do for processing images and all of that stuff. But we had only barely worked together as with Michael as an author and me as his editor. And I was not normally with a very first time author. I'm a little bit, I handle them a little bit differently than and Michael, I just had these expectations that he was not a first time author, that he was, going to be spot on all the time. And that I thought I could edit and layout, which was a big mistake. It cost me a lot of time. So there were a lot of things like that mistakes that I made. And I think it could have been a lot better process for both of us if I had seen Michael, as he really, as he really was. He
as the God he imagines himself to be, you mean?
Well, a first-time author is hesitant to put themselves out there. I mean,
okay.
For the number of things, how did you feel the first time you got published? How long did you put something off? How much encouragement did you need? How did you feel? You feel naked when you put something out.
Sure,
It's a big thing. And I had I'm usually mildly empathetic to that kind of thing. But I wasn't, even the slightest empathetic to that. I was just like, come on, Michael. I mean, what's happening? And so I'm very, very pleased with the book. I know that Bill would have been pleased with it, and mostly. But the process was not something that I would like to repeat. And I'm sure Michael would.
I mean, one thing that I really commend you on is that you are constantly learning from the process. Every time you do something, you're tweaking and you're learning and you're figuring out how you can do things a little bit better. It's very much like what I do with Blue Cat Productions. Every time I do something, I'm like, okay, I know it was pretty good, but how can I make it better? And
Absolutely.
so I know that the books that are coming up that we'll talk about in a moment are going to be even more fabulous. In the meantime, I've got my book and I haven't even opened it yet because I've been waiting to do this live. And so I'm going to open it and give my live reaction to this book. In the meantime, maybe we can launch the poll as I'm starting to open this, and I'm just going to kind of, stream of consciousness here. So it looks beautiful. It's plastic wrapped. It came protected in the corner, so I appreciate that. And I'm going to do this quickly so that we don't take up too much time here. That new book smell. I know that you had issues with the dust jacket, and I'm very happy to see that you've resolved it. And there was, I think, a breaking and flaking of the ink on the dust jacket there. And very, very nice paper. It feels similar to the paper that was used for the American Mineral Treasures.
It does feel similar, but it is
Yeah.
entirely different paper, an entirely different process. The print technology since 2008 has changed enormously.
This is a great picture of Michael and Bill right there. I love that.
Michael spent hours upon hours listening to the same stories over and over and over again from Bill, and then hearing different versions of them from lots and lots of people. I mean, Michael put there was no detached author involved in this.
I'm gonna try to hold up a couple images. This is one that just pops off the page for me. How you got that red proper is just, it's stunning. It's popping off. I mean, great photograph, great print job here. I mean, this, you know, here we go, another red. I think that's a crocoite there. This has the feel of the American Mineral Treasures, which is just such a fantastic book. And this is wonderful. The photographs on every page just pop off. I think you can kind of start getting an idea of it. I mean, it's wonderful.
It's really a stunning book, and it's the first time we've ever done a dust jacket. The dust jacket cost us about 3 months while we learned about coatings. And like I said, this new process with fluorescent inks, or UV inks they call them, which is, you know, they're fast drying, so they can print the two sides of the page at the same time. We did that also with rubellite and diamond. We did that same process, but a hardcover book is really an entirely different animal.
Well, I can't wait to dive into this, and I'm going to take this time to announce right now that you are donating a copy of this book to our viewers. So there's going to be one lucky winner who's going to get a copy of this book. Stay tuned to the very end, because I'm going to give you information on how you can win that. So thank you very much. That's very generous of you, Gloria.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now,
Thank
Gloria,
you, Michael. People are really just getting their books. So, I mean, it's an exciting time.
Oh, it's a wonderful book. It's a wonderful book. And as we talked yesterday, you know, and as I said earlier, there's a part of you that's constantly trying to improve, and you're constantly trying to push the bar up another notch up to come out with better and better publications. So there is a project that I believe is going to press right now that you've been working on, and we've alluded to it earlier, the Stephen Smale book, and this is volume 2. Tell us a little bit about this and what you're doing a little bit differently here.
Well, our next monograph's supposed to be agate, and it will be agate.
Okay.
But for various reasons, including COVID, I decided to take on a couple of contract publications. And Steve Smale approached me with this project. Now, we had done a book on Smale's collection in 2006. And it's a pretty simple book. It's he has killer rocks. There's no doubt about it. And he likes captions, and he has a few things that he likes done the way he likes them done. So with regard to, say, layout, there's not a whole lot of challenge there. But what a book like this enables us to do is to really explore different things like coatings. I'm into coatings right now. And different print techniques that someone like Steve offers us the opportunity to explore. So our printer is talking to us about using a new process called a Pantone or a hexachrome process, where we have a 6-color a mix of colors instead of the normal CMYK.
And
And
so
this costs a
I'm
little
sorry,
bit
Gloria,
more.
I'm going to jump real quickly back to this. You
Right.
can see that dotted line is the Pantone
That's
for
the
the hex
Pantone.
color chart.
That's right. And so a book like this allows us, with the client's permission, and to try to explore these kinds of technologies and things that we really can't afford to do within the monograph niche. And so yes, it looks like we're going to go with a color process. We're not sure exactly what difference that it's going to make, particularly in this book, but we are bringing proofs to Steve, which will show. Yeah, so here on the left, you can see that's what we would normally get in a CMYK space. And this is what we would get in this new Pantone 6-color space.
And so basically what you're doing is you're taking the standard CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, Y is yellow, and K is black. And
right.
You are adding 2 additional colors. You are adding an orange and a green. And those are printed and then they're screened opposite of each other so that they can meld together. So adding that orange and green in this example, you could see how in the lower left that the purple flower in the foreground has a lot more intensity in there. And on the delicate flower, the petals of the flower there, you see a much truer gradation from the deeper orange to the lighter yellow. And it really pops off a lot more than a standard CMYK. And looking at the CMYK prints from the Pinch book and trying to anticipate what a 6-color process might be for the Smale book, I can't wait.
No, I mean, this is going to be wonderful. It's going to be vivid. It's going to make me hate every book I did before, which is, and we're going to have a chance to learn, because obviously, whatever Michael was doing for processing to CMYK, now this is 6 plates, so the separations are going to be very different. And my big concern there, if you go back to the flowers, my big concern there is on everything that I've seen done in this, it feels like exposure is wrong. I feel like this on the right-hand side is maybe, I would normally call that a little bit too hot. I don't know if you would agree with that, Michael, but up in the tips of this, I feel like the yellows are burnt out. I think we're going to have to really work with our blacks and figure out how to make sure that we have dimension in those spaces. And it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. And but exciting and fun, and something that once we learn it, we'll be able to carry it forward. And so there's a lot of value to these types of books. I know sometimes people sort of write them off as, oh, these are vanity publications or what have you. But I don't look at them that way. I really look at them as opportunities to learn and grow in different directions. Not necessarily, we're not going to learn so much about agate as we will when we do the agate book, or whatever the subject matter might be. We're not even going to learn that much about Smale, but we're really going to deep dive into some new technologies, and hopefully be much better publishers in the future, and that our community is going to benefit in a huge way from that. When I first started in the business, Christian Weiser said something to me that stuck with me forever. He said, we deliver joy. We're not mailing bills. We're not, we are totally, we're totally discretionary, and we help people enjoy their collections. And so it's a print media that's not as popular anymore as it used to be, but really we do deliver this kind of joy. And so if you can really, especially in the absence of shows now with COVID and everything, if we can really give a more realistic picture of minerals, which is what we all enjoy and love. I mean, where's the negative in this?
There is no
And
negative. It is 100% positive. I love the fact that you're pushing the envelope and you're trying to do things differently, and you're not doing it for ego or for monetary gain. Certainly not. You're doing it to provide a nicer experience to everybody. And I'm going to jump back to a point that you made earlier, and then we're going to move on. But going back to this image, um, part of the thing that you're talking about is the dynamic range, where you see a better gradation on the image on the left than you do on the right. Yeah, the image on the right, there's more saturation, but you tend to lose the little nuances in there. And it would be interesting to see if these six color printing affects that and how you could counteract that. But simultaneously, we have new technology in terms of new cameras that are providing photographers with an extended dynamic range, whereas previously you may have 10 to 12 stops of dynamic range, or zones if you want to use the Ansel Adams parlance. With the newer cameras, you're now getting 15, 16 steps of dynamic range. And so to combine those two technologies is going to be, to me, fascinating in terms of what we could eventually get into the hands of collectors worldwide. So kudos for you. Thank you for not being afraid to experiment.
I agree, and that's going to happen that's kind of going to happen in Michael's office, in his studio, where he's going to see this new camera technology, and I suspect that Jeff has a new camera or new settings, and then yes, try to figure out how to best use this other color space. I haven't asked the questions, but I would like to know whether we can, instead of use orange and green, whether we can go into a blue and a red and expand the gamut in other directions. And whether so we could do a ruby sapphire, for example, and come closer to the colors which never are available in print. So it's very
See, but to
exciting.
me, that's what I love. You've got the questions. What if we did this? Your printer may say, "Oh, we can do orange and green," and instead of just saying, "Oh, that'd be wonderful," you're saying, "That's cool, but what if we did this instead?" That
Right.
to me is fantastic.
Right. And, we don't know. I don't know how that's all going to work out and what any of that's going to look like, but it's really, really exciting. And as Anne and Bill Larson have pointed out to me on numerous occasions, back to the Smale book again, the most collectible books from the old days are the ones that documented collections.
Mhm.
The Sowerbees, etc., are the ones that are in the highest demand. And so in the future, even if there is a muted interest in a book like Smale's right now, those books will be highly collectible. The special editions of Smale's book, there were only a few leather bounds done. They're already very, very collectible. So anyway, and we're almost out of time.
Yeah, I know, but I'm gonna move on.
Easy.
I'm going to move on to another question, because this is very important to me. I'm going to step away from technology, as we've been talking about, and talk about something else that to me is critically important, and it's really the reason why I started Blue Cap Productions. And I caught a sense of this back when this came out, and some of your subsequent books, like the Minette book, I saw a little bit more of it. I saw a lot of it in that book behind you, which is this one right here, the Collecting Arizona book. And it's the storytelling. And that is totally independent of technology, but it is so critical in binding us and strengthening our sense of community. And you have a very strong sense of this, because once you kind of know what to look for, I can see this in all the monographs, back from even the Madagascar piece, where you are really at heart a storyteller. And in another publication that you're working on right now, that you're just starting, which is very near and dear to my heart, you're really focusing on this. And the publication I'm talking about is the new Dreher book, Dreher Masterworks. And I know Patrick's online right now, so he'd be very happy to hear about this. But tell us about this. This is the book that you're doing for the Houston Museum in conjunction with their upcoming Master Dreher exhibit that they're going to be presenting soon.
Well, do you mind if I so I just want to disagree with you a little bit. I agree that the stories are all that matters to me. That's the whole thing.
You're not allowed to disagree. It's my show.
But I think technology has a lot to do with storytelling, because I see myself as a science communicator or as a communicator. And so I'm the liaison between an artist or between a collector or the scientific community and the reader. And so vivid imagery and placement and things of that nature do help to tell the story. So I think technologies, and I'm a little bit of a techie geek, so I agree with you.
We all are.
But yeah, the Dreher book is something that Joel Barch approached me on. And I was visiting with Patrick Dreher after the Munich show last year, and I had kind of declined the book. And Patrick told me about the Stern story, and we saw the things in his home and his grandfather's carvings. And I went back to Joel and I said, maybe this would be a good thing for me to take on. I would like to do it. And so we started to work on it. And I really do like working with Joel, because there's no holds barred. He will, you want the top technology, go for it. You want whatever, you want to hire an artist, you hire an artist. You do whatever you want to do, and layouts and designs and all of those things. And I wanted to spend some time on the text. It was written by a woman named Nina Held, and I really got involved in the text. And so here again, we've got a little bit of a disconnect, because it's going to be a big book. It's going to be as big as Equid's book. And the text, the story of the Dreher family, of Idar, of Fabergé, and how all of this connects is very, very interesting. And I've found a way, I think, to really verbally get it across, and I've worked hard on the text. And now it's time to tell the visual part of the story. And this is going to be a book I hope people are going to want to read, but it's not going to be a very comfortable book to read, because it's going to be so big. And so this was a problem that Anne Fraser pointed out with the Pinch collection, is that we worked really hard on the text, and Michael's a really good writer. But it isn't a book you can take to bed and read, or on an airplane. You got to sort of set it down on a table and sit up. Yeah.
Well, I've got a photo of Rex in bed with the book.
Yeah. So we got to figure out a way to deliver the textual content in a book format that is beatable. So I'm talking about ways to do that. And Brian suggested yesterday that maybe we want to then go to offering the text online as well, which might be a solution. I'll have to talk to Joel about whether or not he'd want to do that. So yeah, it's a wonderful story. I don't want to get into it too much now. We're over time.
Well, it's typical, but but I do commend you again on giving that story the importance. And Joel is absolutely a wonderful person. I love the fact that he knows enough to hire the best people and let them do the work. And Joel and I we're trying to work it out so that we can also have a film on the collection produced by Blue Cat Productions. So we're going to see how that goes. Fingers are crossed. In the meantime, we're going to have to start closing the show. We're a little bit over time, but Gloria, we've got an important thing. I hope the poll is closed now. I've got 5 questions that I'm going to ask you. And I don't know if you know how this works, but these are quick fire questions. I'm going to read them. They're 2 answers. You just have to pick one of the 2, and we'll see how the audience has reacted. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Okay. There is no wrong answer that you could provide. Every answer that you have is the correct answer. We have to see if the audience has got the correct answer. Question number 1, real book or Kindle?
Real book.
See, that was easy. Question number 2, margarita or gin and tonic?
Margarita.
Margarita all the way. Question number 3, flying or driving?
Ooh, driving.
Driving. Question number 4, this is probably the toughest one. Toilet paper, over the top or low and below?
Over the top.
Over the top, as God intended it to be. Final question, James Bond or Sherlock Holmes?
James Bond.
James Bond. Fantastic. Eloise, are you ready with the answers?
I am ready with the answers. Yes.
Oh, that was a sultry answer. I think you need to stop drinking now, or maybe keep drinking. Okay.
Brian.
Question number 1, real book or Kindle? What did our audience answer?
That was too easy, Brian.
That was a throwaway. That was a giveaway. Okay.
98% answer read book. Of course.
Okay, question number 2, margarita or gin and tonic?
Okay, for margarita. I think everybody was in the Tucson spirit, and yes, margarita got the right answer.
Shee-hoo. Number 3, flying or driving?
Got it right again. Driving.
Wow, that's 3 out of 3 so far. Toilet paper, over the top or low and below?
Over the top, yes.
Over the top. Thank you. And the final one, James Bond or Sherlock Holmes?
You know what? We have 100% of right answer. So we got it with James Bond. Everybody was right.
Wow.
Go to
That is
a special prize for viewers tonight, because 5 out of 5 is pretty awesome.
Woohoo. Okay, let's give away a book. Actually, let's first go see if there are any questions that Gloria can answer before we give away the book. And this is our subtle way to make the viewers tune into the very, very end.
Yes, just first thing, Gloria, you have a lot of supporters saying thank you for doing all this great work. So a lot of people are looking forward to buy the coming books for the Dreher book and for the Agate book. So a lot of people are really thanking you in the first place. I think that a lot of questions were related to photography, because I think we spent a lot of time talking about that. I sent in the chat as well, Raquel and I sent in the chat the link to the lithography. So I know that someone was asking about the price range of your books. So that's going to be, you can find all those information on the
website.
Mm-hmm. So please go and look at the lithography website. You will know everything about that. Someone was asking about stacking photographies. You know, when you have to stack photos to see the depth of you, did you have to deal with that before, and how do you handle it?
So this is all, it's the photographers who take the pictures stacking. I don't do any of that. That really, those are questions for Michael and for Jeff. I now see the difference, and I recommend that people do stacking, because I can see that they get these great depths of field and that sort of thing. And you'd have to talk to Michael about if you want to talk about submitting, and I know those guys are very generous with their how-tos. We should probably do a workshop again, because they're really valuable.
Yes.
So you can, but I would direct those questions to Jeff and Michael. Can I give their email addresses, or guys?
Yeah, we can post it in the chat. I don't know if Michael agrees with that, but I think it is.
Well, Michael and Jeff, put out your emails if you feel comfortable with that, and really that's where to direct your questions.
Perfect.
About photography.
Maybe he can do, like he's answering, maybe he can do a webinar for himself. I think that would be a good thing, Michael, if you want to do a webinar on this topic. I think that would be a great idea. You will have a lot of followers.
Yeah, Brian, that's
Jeff,
a good idea.
might be able to do it as well. So Yes.
Maybe that's an extension of Mineral Talks Live if we can do it without charging anybody. That would be an interesting special edition.
That's for
Have
sure.
Jeff and Michael do
That's for
a
sure.
online workshop. So I don't know. We can think about it.
Okay, good idea, right? Yeah. Okay. Another question from Douglas Bank is asking if you ever considered doing a book on fluorescent minerals.
Yeah, absolutely. We have one, we have lots of things in the works, and I'm glad you asked that because it gives me a chance to tell you what things are in the works. So what to get photographed or what to be working on your photographs for. We've had for a long, long time working with Al Liebetrau, a book on fluorescent minerals. I think Michael is saying something about 6-color and fluorescence. That would really be something that we'll need to will be exciting to explore.
And let me interject for a second. Al Liebetraub was in charge of putting together an 80-case display at the 2021 TGMS show of nothing but fluorescent minerals. And obviously that's been pushed off, but he is 100% the person to be working with.
Well, he's looking. I think we need another person, but there is a lot written on that, and that's a whole nother kind of talk about photography. And there's been a lot of technique changes in that, which are very interesting. And so yes, we are interested. And like Michael says, 6-color on fluorescence is going to be great. So
excellent, thank you.
Oh, and can I tell you about the things we have in the works?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, go ahead. Plug your company more, Gloria.
I'm sorry. So our next monograph is agate, and we're still collecting photos on that. We really don't have, we did our calendars on agate. And when we, beautifully done by a different designer in our house, Megan Funk. We really don't have a lot of alternative localities. Most all of the agate photos that we've collected are Laguna or Montana, a few things from India. We've got like a couple things from China and nothing from Turkey. One from Australia. I mean, nothing from Kentucky. So if you're ever wanting to get published, go get your agate photos, go get your agate specimens photographed and get them into us. I'll be working on that in the spring. I think I saw one from Nova Scotia on Rob Tyson's Facebook today, and I asked him to get an MJB on it. So,
but you have to have a lot of agate from Idar Oberstein, don't you?
We've got one picture.
Okay,
Nobody
I have some if you want.
Well, send them in. Send in your pictures. So agate, and then we have a hardcover book coming out of series, a big book on specimen gold.
Okay.
And that's being written by Terry Wallace and Bob Cook. Wonderful storytellers, both of them, with help from other people in the industry. And so we're collecting photos for that, and hopefully going to have some really wonderful gold photos that you've actually never seen before.
Nice.
We're working on a monograph on New Mexico. We've got a monograph in the works on Sumep. And
Raquel Zeiss did that. She's like, man.
So if you want to start getting your photos taken, go for it. You know, we really, really love to include as many people as we can. Okay, what was the next question? I'm sorry, after all that plugging.
No worries. I only have a few questions left. Just someone that you were talking about that earlier, asking if you were about to consider online publication and also allowing 3D videos and things related to maybe modeling and 360 and like all the 3D.
The 360 piece we've never considered, and okay. I don't know how to do it in a 2-dimensional space, but it's not undoable. It's just I've never considered it. The online, yes, we talk periodically about putting at least the PDFs of our books up online. We've never done that. We're small. And so every direction that we expand takes resources and, that we don't necessarily have. But yeah, one of these days we'll get there. So.
Terrific. I can't wait to see some of the old out-of-print monographs available as PDFs online. That would be wonderful, I think, for the whole community. So, Gloria, I'm going to cut you off from this infomercial. And
sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm going to go do what everyone's been waiting for, other than listening to you, of course. But they want to know how they can win a free copy of this fabulous book. And let me just give one word of warning. If in perusing your book, your dust jacket happens to come off, oh, it's hell getting it back on. I've been fiddling with it for 10 minutes. I can't get it back on. Yeah. It's so tight and it's so precise. And maybe I'm just, somewhat brain dead, but be careful about that. So let me give you information on how you can win this free book. You have to go to the lithographie.org website, and that is Gloria's page. And the 5th person to correctly post the answer in the chat room will get this. And this is going to be determined by Raquel and Eloise looking at who's posting what. So what you have to post is you go to the website and post the name of Lithographie's Canadian dealer. Go.
you need time music.
Dun, 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 dun. Poor Alex.
Gloria, we don't need music. With Brian, that's all we need. He could be our radio, he could be our TV show. Okay, the chat is going crazy. Eloise, are you following? We said the 4th, right?
Yes, I'm following. I see only
The
one.
the 5th, not the 4th.
The 5th. Okay.
Yeah, that.
Nope. No winner so far.
But that one.
The first one I think was right.
Right. One
5th.
answer we got there correctly.
We need the right answer. The 5th right answer.
Okay. I think
So
we gave it away.
I think we need to give 2 away, because when you asked me the question,
you got it wrong. Okay, there are two copies going away.
Wrong right answer that they're putting up there. So
okay, all right. So it's the 5th person for each one. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
For each of the 2 answers.
No, we lost.
They're both right.
Okay, so Kate Donovan just came in with number 4. Next one to come in with the correct answer is.
I think I have Ashley over there for the first right one, but we need to check back the log because it's not easy to see on the chat log. So
I think you've got 5 now.
Okay.
yes,
Of both.
I've got 5 of each.
You've got 5 of both. Yeah.
So I guess we will save the chat. I mean, the chat is safe, so we will go carefully prove it and make sure we get the right person.
The right.
We'll get back.
We don't want to rush through that.
So you're not going to announce it now?
I apparently asked the bosses.
I think we should.
I'm just a monkey in front of the camera.
No, but I think we should probably wait.
Okay,
until
so
we double check the chat.
Raquel says we wait, so we wait. All right, we'll be in touch with you. Somebody has gotten the right answer out there. Look at Raquel; she's just laughing because she's like, "Oh, I'm in charge."
Let me know who they are, and we'll get their books.
We know. We know.
I love it. I love it. Okay,
thank
Gloria,
you everyone for your attention.
We will let you know. I want to thank you for joining us on the show today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And Eloise, if you can go ahead and spotlight my camera for a second, please. Not just because I enjoy seeing myself on camera. It's There we go. Hi. So, Gloria, thank you again for being part of the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Check out Blue Cap Productions' YouTube channel tomorrow, and we've got our interview with Tama Higuchi going live tomorrow. That originally aired way back in October 21st, so that was a wonderfully fun show. Check that out. That's going to be fun. And tune in next week. We're going to have Dr. Frank Kuch. He's the professor of chemistry at Harvard University. And Frank specializes in sulfides and sulfur salts. And you know what that means? That means he loves his black uglies. And so this is a man who believes that oxygen turns good minerals bad. So come on back, meet with us and Frank, and it's going to be a fantastic show. So from all of us here at Mineral Talks Live, we want to thank all of you for joining in, and thank you again, Gloria, for being a part of it. Aloha, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye. I'm happy to confirm that we have 2 winners.